welcome you into another week of Scrushy on Business, where we talk about everything that the entrepreneur, the business owner, and those that are interested in the ownership of business and the psychology behind it, and of course, all of the history that Richard Scrushy has in it. For the star of our program, Scrushy on Business, Richard, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing very well, thank you. Today is a good day. We got a beautiful day here in Magnolia, Texas, and weather's great. The sky's clear, and I'm just looking forward to great things in our lives. I believe that God is good, and He's good all the time. But we had a very interesting guest last week. We finally got Billy Manovich on the show. What a character he is, huh?
Yeah, he is something else, and you can easily see why. He is somebody who, when he is presenting his product, right? You see all the things that we've talked about. Remember when we talked a few weeks ago and we said, ultimately it comes down to you. You see that
Right.
passion, that he sells with, that he talks about. And the other thing, and you talked about this, and we did at length, the when we talked about his product the first time, is that it's such a perfect product because it not only fills a need, but it also has that extra layer of the safety, right? And the fact that it actually helps companies who buy it for their employees.
It exactly. So, if you can eliminate back injuries is the number one healthcare problem and healthcare cost, and really for loss of on the job work is back injuries. It puts more people out and it costs companies more money. When I was running the big company, we looked at all the things in the big company that we were spending on healthcare, and we
Hmm.
were spending like 50 million a year on healthcare, some huge
Wow.
amount of money because we had 50 something thousand employees. And I mean, it was crazy what was going on. I mean, we had people that got, really, it wasn't 50 million. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but it was a big number. And I remember looking one time, it was as much as 8 million on drugs that we were spending on all of our employees. But you got to understand, when you have 50,000 employees, you're probably insuring 200,000 people
Hmm.
because they have families. So we were insuring all of them. But the biggest one thing we spent money on was back injuries. Interesting, huh? And then, of course, the time off. You've got to pay them while they're off. You got to pay for all the health care, and then you've got to bring somebody else in to do the work. So it really costs a lot of money. So what he's bringing to the hotel industry, what he is bringing to the hospital industry, and all of those where they're in there scrubbing bathrooms and toilets and cleaning windows and everything, even in cleaning office buildings. He's bringing a process and a tool that will eliminate those back injuries. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that his particular product does.
Yeah, and let's jump right into it because Maria from Phoenix, Arizona emailed in info at scrushyonbusiness.com, and she asked this question. Richard, she said, Richard Bill talked about how Simple Scrub started because he was solving a problem he personally experienced with his grandmother. And she asked, how do you know when a personal frustration is actually a business opportunity that others will care about too? And quickly, I would say, if you haven't already, watch the episode because Bill goes into that the way that he did it. And that's what I really loved about Bill is you can tell Richard, he's a grinder, right? He put his heart and soul into that. So when she asks, how do you know if it's an actual business opportunity? He went and found out the hard way. He just hoofed it and started making them and selling them, and it continued to grow. Derek from Nashville, Tennessee wrote in and asked, when you're trying to identify the need, how much research should you do before you spend a dime? And what's the best way to find out if people really want what you're creating? Well, the answer to that is really as much as you can, right? As much as you can possibly do in terms of research without having to spend money, because the first simple thing is just start asking people. Just start asking people who you think would need that product about their interests. Now, keep in mind, as I'm sure Richard you have run into, as I have all the time, and this is one of the kind of the basis of the show is you have to have people who are going to tell you the truth, because a lot of people at first are going to tell you, what a great idea it is because they like you. So you really have to go
That's
find
true.
people who aren't just going to simply tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, because a lot of people want to make, they want to say positive things. They want to make you feel good about your ideas. No, they don't want to tell you, well, it looks like to me it's gonna, it's not gonna work. I mean, they have a hard time doing it. But here's the deal: you got to have a, and I talk about this in the book when I talk about do the math and see if it works. You have to have a solid sales model and a sales plan that's believable and achievable. It's got to be believable, but it's got to be achievable. See, a lot of times we make up stuff. I've seen things that weren't even believable, much less achievable. So it's got to be both. And it should be as accurate as possible. But, sometimes we don't have all the information. So we have to make what we call guesstimates. We have to guess. We call it a guesstimate. I'm not sure, but I think this is what it's going to be. And hopefully you're as close as possible. And if you're off, then at some point you're going to be able to correct that, hopefully, and get your model is again accurate. So you're going to be challenged, when you start raising money to try and do something. And so you want to make sure that is you're as close and as reasonable and that your assumptions are accurate as possible and whatnot. And that a smart investor can, see what you're saying and understand it and say, yeah, I think you're right. I think you are on in terms of what you're saying. So, don't kid yourself and make up things that are not achievable or not believable. Always try to, because see, you don't want to lose credibility with the potential investor before you even get started. So you got to be credible when you come in. I read something that I thought was kind of cool and kind of interesting, and that was that you can turn your personal brand into a business. And so if you are, an outgoing person, you have sales capabilities, people know you within the community, you're branded. That's a brand. They have branded you as this person that has done these things. If you coached a baseball team, or if you helped a girls soccer team, or whether male or female, whatever you've done in the community, you go to you belong to some clubs, you go there, you teach a Sunday school class, you literally brand yourself within a community, and that helps a lot. If people know you as a person who is outgoing, who's been successful, who is well spoken, whatnot, you have a brand. So you can take that brand, and if you do have a good concept in a business, chances are you're going to have an immediate following of people who say, "Hey, that I know her or I know him," and I heard him give a speech at the Rotary Club and about this or about that. And so a lot of people work for other companies, but at some point, like Billy, they have an idea and then they come out of that company and they have their own company and they have their own business. It was kind of fun. Billy was said he was driving down the road and the boxes were all flying out the back of his truck when he was going. But he said he was thinking to himself, man, I got my own business. I'm in business. I got my own business. I'm making my own money. This is on me. And I came up with this idea. Well, man, what a great thing, that for an entrepreneur, I've got to go back and I got to say, quote Warren Buffett on a few things right here, because he said if you don't work on your dreams, you'll work on somebody else's dreams.
Yes.
And that's what people do. And he says it's always better to find clients than to look for new bosses or for bosses. And he was right. Uh, being doing your own thing is like incredible, and it's a whole lot of fun if you can do that and you've got a great idea. So to answer her question, do the math, check it out, make sure it's achievable, but make sure it's believable, and then check the models and verify things and put it together and see if it works, and talk to people who you think are smarter than you are. I always did that. I always had somebody I thought was smarter than me that I'd call and say, what do you think? And sometimes they'd say, I don't think much about that, Richard. And I needed to hear that. And then maybe I didn't go down that road, and maybe I saved myself a lot of time and energy and disappointment, by asking somebody else what they thought. So these things you can check out, these things you can do. And, again, putting yourself out there into your community as a leader and as a speaker and as somebody who has their own brand will help you a great deal in being able to get started and get traction on your business within your community. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm not going to say it's got to be that way, but it doesn't hurt and it can always help. What's next?
You talk about that the sort of the community aspect and grassroots growing a company from the beginning. Tanya from Charlotte, North Carolina wrote in and said, Bill got his product on Home Shopping Network, right? So there was obviously a little luck involved in that situation, and he got a huge bump. And so her question is, for a small business, how do you scale up, to meet opportunities? How do you go, not everybody's going to get on Home Shopping Network or get an opportunity like that. So, how do you take that product and you start out, you've got that great idea, you've got everything right, but now you've got to start from scratch building your own audience.
Yeah, it just so happened that he had a product that made sense for Home Shopping Network, and not everything that you want to do does. Like if you have a concept on a new restaurant or a concept on a service business, like let's say Hunter Carr, when he was out there and doing the collections business, or creating the legal services company that he did, or those are not things you can take to Home Shopping Network. But if you do have a new product that is unique, like his was unique, you need to look for opportunities. Where can I display that? Where can I show that? How do I go about getting this product into a distribution network? Like if you had a whatever it is, whatever your product is, how do I get into Home Depot? How do I get into Costco? How do I get into Walmart or on Amazon and whatnot? Now, and let me tell you, that's one good thing about Amazon. You don't have to be in Costco or Walmart or someplace like that to be able to get on Amazon. If you've got a good product, and this is what I love about social media now and the internet. You can get out there and set up your own website. You can begin in social media starting to push that product. You can get Amazon if it's a decent product, they'll put that product out there for you, and they will. You can sell it on Amazon. I mean, I know got people who've done it, and their products are on Amazon right now, and they're selling them. Might not be selling a lot of them, but you can get their product on Amazon. Amazon blows my mind. I had just a small part I needed for something, and I would have never thought that you could have gotten it on Amazon. And there it was. I found a part for my truck on Amazon. I went to the truck dealership to buy a part, and they were back ordered. They didn't have it, and the guy said, "Well, you might find it on Amazon." And I went on Amazon,
Yes.
and let me tell you what else. I bought that particular product for a fourth of what they were going to charge me at the dealership on Amazon. Now it was an aftermarket product. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't the actual brand,
Right.
but it fit, and I put it on, and you couldn't tell any difference, right? And I installed it myself and saved the money of all of it. And so, and just to give you an idea, I mean, it was like, well, actually, it was like a 20 because they wanted $549, and I think I paid 90 something dollars for it. Can you believe that on Amazon? So, Amazon blows my mind with their ability to do all the things that they have done. But if you've got a great product that's usable, let me tell you, take it out to some folks and, get a dozen people using it and see what they say. And if they call you up and say, "This is fantastic," and I showed it to my neighbor and they want one, and then she showed it to somebody and I took it to church and I gave it to 5 people there, and now I got 20 people from there using it, well, you're beginning to see that you might have a viable product. So there are things you can do in terms of testing and checking it all out before you invest a lot of money in it. Didn't Billy say something like, and remind me, Dave, didn't he say like he made, I forget, 50 or some number, and he put it in the hands of the people at one of the distribution companies? And in other words, he started with a small amount.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what he said, but he did start and to see if he could get traction, and they ordered more. Didn't
Right.
and then
That was the
that
hotel.
yeah,
Yeah.
out in California, was it?
Yeah. I can't remember where it was, but yeah, I mean, he gave them, the opportunity to use them. We joke that, the only negative about Bill's product is it's built so well that you don't need to replace them. However, obviously they're getting more and more of them. Speaking of, hotels and big hotel chains and that type of thing, but the idea that his product is not only good, well
Mhm.
made, right? Put a lot of heart and soul into it, fits the need, but then, as we talked about at the beginning, has that added benefit of potentially saving companies like hotels lots of money. That he hit a grand slam with that product.
And it's yeah, and he made it so sturdy. I took the product, and he told me you try to break it, and I took it and I beat it and beat it and beat it on concrete, and it wouldn't break. I said, "Well, this will last forever." I mean, really, it will. He said, "If you break it, I'll give you another one." I mean, because you just can't do it. What's next? I know you got another question.
Well, I think you'll really like this one, and I'm interested to hear what you say. Josh from Tampa, Florida, wrote in at info@scrushyonbusiness.com and asked, "What's one mindset you've seen in successful founders like Bill that separates them from people who just dream about starting a business?"
Yeah, yeah. There's something special about an individual that has the ability to focus and put his energy behind something like that project and see, he had several things going for him. He had the energy, but a lot of people are afraid to make phone calls. Some people are afraid to if you don't have some
Yep.
sales ability about yourself, and you're not willing to make the phone calls. And see, he started calling people, he started getting in front of people, he started pitching it to everybody. He had the energy because he was passionate. So I believe that part of your entrepreneurial trait is the passionate spirit that you've got to have. And then again, remember we talked early on in one of our podcasts about the fact that the entrepreneur really doesn't have any fear. I mean, the real true serial entrepreneur is not afraid. He's not afraid to make a phone call. He's not worried about the risk. He didn't care about that. He's going because what he has is he is focused on the end result, and he's going to do everything he can, or she's going to do everything she can to make that happen. I had that. I literally could see uh, these clinics that I wanted to build. And I had visions of the patients coming in and out. And then I would have these dreams about all the services and how it was going to work. And so I already knew. So when people said, "Well, how are you going to do this or how are you going to do that?" I already knew. I'd tell them how it was going to happen. And because I saw it, I dreamed, I had a vision about it, I was passionate about it, and I believed that it would work. And I did everything I could to make it happen. And Billy has that trait. Uh, Now, there are people out there that have the vision but don't have the skill set to go make it happen. And those people struggle in being able to get their product up and going unless they come across somebody. And again, let's just go back to the guys that started McDonald's, the McDonald's brothers. They're not the ones that built that international worldwide company. It was Ray Kroc. And the Ray Kroc came along and he saw it and he took it and he was amazed with the product, the efficiency, the timeliness, how quick they could service everything and what they were making, and the economics of it. There are people out there that will help you if you don't have that skill set. You may have the idea and the dream, but there are people that may take your product and be able to take it to another level. And those are people, and I actually talk about that in my book sometimes, buying an existing product, buying an existing business. Somebody else says, I made this, and they don't know what to do with it. And you go, "Oh
Right.
my gosh, I can take that and I can do a whole bunch with it." So, getting to her question, it's all about your talent, about your abilities, about what you're willing to do. Now, some people have all of that, but yet they're tied up in a financial situation that won't let them do it, or they have a big family that requires, or they have somebody that's ill in their family that they're having to take care of, and they have great ideas and they have entrepreneurial spirit, but they just can't break out of that situation. And it may be that they have to find somebody to help them. But all of those things are important. And I think the difference between people that actually make it happen and those that don't is really the skill set that you have and whether or not you have the ability to break out of whatever is holding you right now in terms of your job or your financial situation to be able to go and take your time to do that. Um, there are, I love to look at some of the things that Warren Buffett says. He says the path out of poverty is through financial education, and I think what he's saying there is understanding how do you what is financial education? Understanding how you can build something financially, doing the math, see if it works, understand it, calculate it, put it in front of people, and say, hey, by the way, I can build this for $10 and I can sell it for $100. So there's a 10 times return on every one of these that we put out there. Okay, well, how many people do you think will buy it? Well, let me just give you this. Okay, there are X number of people in the world that need this. They're over here using this product right now. It's not as good. And so I believe that we can sell 1 million of these a month or whatever, or, a year or whatever. And so that's going to make $10 million in profit. And so here's what our return is going to be. So if you can do the math and prove it and show it, and you've got the energy and the sales ability, and you've got the passion, and you've got the time to go make it happen, you can be successful. So, and that happens every day, and that's what Billy has done.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
I think it was a great answer, and it ties into the last one I want to get to here, which is Ray from Atlanta, Georgia, wrote in and says, how important is storytelling, like Bill's story about his grandmother and cleaning floors? How important is that in getting people to connect emotionally with your brand? And, obviously, I think the important thing is connecting when you're telling your story to that investor, to that group of investors, to people that you're trying to get money from. And I will tell you, just from my background in media and marketing for companies, which is really what we do and what we sell, is that stories help a great deal, right? What you're doing is you're painting that picture. Bill does an amazing job of painting that picture of grandma in the hot tub, or in the hot tub, in the tub, because he lived it. He walked in and he saw it with his own eyes, with his grandmother, on the floor of the tub, and saying, I have to put the towel down, otherwise I won't be able to get up. So it's very important, but I think it sort of leads to a larger question, or a larger focus, which is, when you're pitching that idea, when you're pitching that product, when you're pitching that dream that you have to others, storytelling is a great way. How does it fit that need? Paint that picture for everybody in the room. It's a great way, to kind of show your passion for whatever it is that you're pitching.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, 100%. You look, people can relate to that. It's kind of like drawing a picture, isn't it? They can see picture, what does it say? The same as 1,000 words or whatever, a picture. If you can paint the picture and they can see it, and they can visualize it. So all of a sudden now they're visualizing what you're saying. They can connect to that. And the interesting thing about his product, everybody had a grandmother. Everybody knew an elderly person that was having to clean their tubs. And they can then understand also, they've all been in a hotel and they've seen the ladies going in and out, cleaning the rooms, and they begin to think, oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, why do they have to get down on their knees and do that? Why couldn't they have this brush that's 360 and then can turn and clean all that and eliminate back injuries and all? So, yeah, that anytime you can paint a picture and give a story that backs up your product, I think it's just fantastic. You know, um, I mean, little things that you can do that are so important in explaining how. We used to, in the healthcare business, I used to talk about the patient coming in and how aggressive we were with our protocols to treat the patient so that we could get them off of the healthcare dollar and get them back to work. Or if it was an athlete, we'll fix their knee or their foot or their ankle or their shoulder or their elbow or whatever it was, and get them back on the playing field and get it done quickly and do it appropriately through good therapy, through aggressive therapy, through treating them properly. Everybody was like, yeah, man, I can see that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. You want to get them back to playing again and back on the field. You want to get people back to work And so when I would go to Wall Street and I would explain why our clinics were going to be successful and more successful than anybody else, I would use those kinds of storytelling. And of course, guess what? I would say, and by the way, y'all probably know the quarterback that was hit, that was, last year, that was playing for such and such team. And, he had that shoulder injury and we rehabbed him and we were able to get him back on the field in 3 weeks without having to do surgery through aggressive rehab. And that's what we did at our facility. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And, and we had all these stories that we would tell. And then people could say, oh, yeah, okay, well, sure. I had a golfer one time call me and he was on the PGA Tour. And he said, I was driving through Dallas. He said, I had an elbow injury. I'd had an elbow injury, and I had been treated over in Georgia at a Health South facility, and they had been treating me. And he said, I had played, and I was over in Texas, and I was driving through Dallas, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was struggling with that elbow because I'd had surgery on it, and they had rehabbed me. But he said, I saw a Health South facility on the side he saw it as he was driving down the interstate. So he said, oh my gosh, there's Health South and sports medicine clinic. He pulled off the exit and he went to that Health South, and he went in there and he said, I'm so and so and I'm on the PGA Tour. And they knew who he was because he's very famous. I'm not going to call his name out. And he said, I've been in treatment over at a facility in Georgia and I had this surgery. And they said, come on in. They took him in immediately. They pulled up his protocols because we were a national company. They were able to get that information. They pulled it up. They saw what his treatment plan is, and they immediately put him in therapy and treated him and worked out that soreness and used, different compressions and different things on him. And he was there a couple of hours, but they took care of him and he went on. So he called me like the next day and he said, you're not going to believe this, Richard. He said, I understand what you were talking about when you signed the contract with the PGA to take care of all of the PGA golfers. When you said we're all over the country, we have 1,800 locations. We're in all 50 states. We're in every major city in America. He said, I understand it now because I was driving down the highway and I saw that opportunity. Well, how many times have we been driving down the highway and then we saw our favorite restaurant, and we said, well, there, let's go there. We know they've got good this or they've got good that, and we know we're not going to be disappointed. Happens all the time, doesn't it? And with same thing with we search out pharmacies, we search out different businesses all over the country, no matter what city we're in, because we know that that's a brand. So telling a story. Telling a story. We're back to that. Yeah, I'm 100% with storytelling. I think it's absolutely essential. If you got a good story about your product, you're going to have more success.
Yeah, paint that picture of, people using your product, like Bill did, grandmothers, people in employment and hospitals, cleaning things. He talks about all the different ways you can use the product. There's so many benefits. Again, I think Bill's story is just an amazing one for any entrepreneurs who are, who think that way, right? Who think of, boy, what if we had this, or, I'm not that way. I have never been on the product side where you're developing something. There's, a whole world of that we could do an entire show on, of talking about that process of, getting something made. Bill for a long time was building them in his garage and
Hmm.
was able to do that, and to meet his demand until he wasn't anymore. And now he's got obviously people doing it. So I loved his story. I think it's got a little bit of everything for entrepreneurs and those wanting to be entrepreneurs.
And I hope that chances are that there's someone that'll be watching this podcast that has a friend, a family member, neighbor, or someone that has built a product company and been successful with it. And we'd love to have them on the show because this is something that's kind of fun to talk about. How did they get there? What did they see? What was the opportunity? Did they go through the process of trying to make that? And did they make it at home, or where did they get started? And I just happened to, I do have one of those already in our, that we're going to bring on. But we're interested in any others, and even in a service business. Like I talked about my cousin who started the cleaning business, and just cleaning office buildings. And he had the ability. He left a job, a good paying job, and started cleaning buildings and built it up and sold the business and made a lot of money off of it. I mean, it doesn't have to be, Dave, it doesn't have to be some genius idea. I mean, I know people that have built great, loan service companies and sold them. We had Lamont on talking about his fence business, building,
Right.
putting fences. I mean, I know a young man right now that's bought his first car wash. He has several of them right now. And as a matter of fact, I want to have him on the show. I've talked to his father about it. He actually called me not long ago. And I don't know how many he has now, but he has several. We want to talk about that. What got you into that? I mean, there are a lot of car washes, a lot of detail shops all over America. Some are better than others, right? Some are going to be more successful than others. I've actually just swapped from the one that I was going to before because a new one opened, and I went through it, and they cleaned the car a whole lot better than the other one. I said, okay, you've got my business. It was less expensive, and they did a better job.
That's it.
And so, and I hope that they're very successful. So we're looking for opportunities to bring people on. But there are a lot of hardworking folks out there that can go build great businesses that are Me Too businesses by making their business a little better, just a little bit, extra, something that would make you leave where you're going now for that same business, and now you're going over here and you're doing it through this new company because they're better. That happens.
Absolutely. Great information today. We thank everybody for sending in their questions. You can do the same, info at scrushyonbusiness.com. Richard is always happy to take a look at your business questions and answer them on the show. A lot of great guests coming up as well. Make sure if you missed any of Bill Manovich's story, you go back to last week's episode and take a look. And of course, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that bell, and leave a message if you'd like, or leave your question there as well. You can do that, and of course, subscribe to all the channels if you're listening to us on a podcast. So we will let you have the last word, Richard, and we'll be back next week with another show.
When blessed, bless others. I can tell you that a good balance in your life will go a long way. So, if you've got a dream, follow that dream. Thank you for watching our podcast. We're looking forward to you continuing. Subscribe. Send us any questions you have. Info at scrushyonbusiness.com. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.